Hi, and thank you for joining us today on the Road to Recovery. I'm Rhonda Jackson, your host, serial entrepreneur, and small business advocate. And today's conversation really centers around the resources that are needed to direct and guide our businesses and really shift them into that new direction, that trajectory of success. And to engage in that conversation with us today is Miss Anna Kennedy. She is a Vistage Chair. Welcome, Anna.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Well, first of all, what is a Vistage Chair? What is it exactly that you do? If you'll share with the audience.
So I'm somebody who was an entrepreneur. I had a business and I sold it about 4 years ago. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do now? And I had been a member of Vistage. In other words, as a business, I've hit up against every problem. And I got rescued very often by my peers from making really bad decisions.
Oh.
So that's what we do. It's a membership organization. And we help business. I specifically work with small businesses under 5 million in size and help them get to the next stage of growth for their companies.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, because that's exactly what the Road to Recovery is about. It's about taking emerging and established entrepreneur to the next stage, the next level of growth. So one of the ways that I like to start the show is I like to ask my guests if they have one word they would use to describe now. What would your one word be, Anna?
Well, I'm cheating. So from the hashtag word, I would say hashtag new normal.
Ah, okay. All right. Say a little more. Why'd you select that as your one word?
Well, what I've become very aware of, particularly right now in the past month or two,
Okay.
is that we're transitioning from a COVID phase in which we're all in panic and we need answers to things at the rate of 100 miles an hour, to a place where we're starting to think about what's our long-term strategy. We're going to be living with this for 9 months, 15 months, who knows? And we're not going to go back. We're not going to unpick a lot of the gains that we had from working in a different way. And we need to figure out how we can leverage those things. So new normal is the normal.
Yeah.
And it's how do we wrap that into our businesses successfully. So that's my word.
I know, I love that. I love the new normal. And I love the fact that you're taking this from a very microscopic 2-week conversation, as you know, a lot of us have experienced, to a very broader conversation on what's the plan, what's the road ahead looks like, right? So
Yeah.
what would your recommendation be? If, you know, using us as business owners and working with a lot of us like you have, how would we begin that path of assessing what's next?
That's really great. I mean, one of the challenges that I see that small businesses have is that there's so much working in their business that their ability to step back and look at their business is limited. There's only so many hours in the day, and particularly right now. So for them to be able to assess their business, they probably need some help. And one of the things that small business owners often don't do is that they get very busy networking to acquire customers or clients, but they don't necessarily think about networking with their peers. So it's time to start using what we've got available in social media to actually start networking with people who are like you, who are running a business, having the same challenges you've got, and trying to figure those things out. So I think one recommendation would be network with your peers. And if it works out, try and put together an informal group where you actually meet up once a month and you talk about the issues that you're dealing with.
I like
and that you work on those. So that's the first one.
I have a question, because in some of our pre-conversation, you actually also shared some initiatives and some resources that you personally have. Will you share a little bit about that with the audience?
Well, I will. I'm actually committed. When I got to 70, which was earlier this year, I sat and thought about what the rest of my life was going to be about. And I was inspired by a particular very good documentary from the entertainment industry of some older entertainers who live into their 90s and they live this wonderful life. And I thought, okay, I'm going to live to 98. And the rest of my life is going to be about seeking economic equity for Black businesses. So one thing I'm working on is to create opportunities for Black businesses to access resources, both in education, in capital, in mentoring, in expanding their businesses across a wider community. And that steering group, I'm really blessed with some great members on that steering group. I chair that group, and we're in action, and probably at the beginning of 2021 we'll have resources ready.
Oh,
so yeah, if I can tag something onto that,
okay.
one of the things that we're developing as part of that is to create a business assessment that is offered to Black business owners free of charge.
Okay.
And so if any of your viewers feel like, wow, I would love to talk to somebody about my business and really get a snapshot of where are my strengths, where are my weaknesses, where am I confident, where am I really worried, that's what I do, right? That's the thing that we're putting together, and we will be interviewing businesses free of charge.
Yeah.
So
No, I appreciate that. So right next to the subscribe button for this channel will be the link for that assessment. And as soon as you have that available, I will definitely share it out and blast it out to the community, because that is something that is so, so needed. So then after an assessment through your organization or that, see, what I love about you is you are the visionary's visionary, right? So as the leaders in our organization, we have this vision of where we'd like to go and what we've pictured our businesses becoming. And then you're kind of over that, hovering and looking for those pitfalls, right? Those shortcomings. And then now to even know and I feel very encouraged at the fact that you're saying that there's resources available to even fill in some of those gaps. So this is just going to be a wonderful thing. So as we do that assessment and we create, this newer, bigger, better vision of our visions, what's next? How do we pivot from there? How, people talk about pivot and shifting and retooling. How do you do that?
Yeah, pivoting, that's the other words that we could have had, right, as the one word.
Uh-huh.
So when people think about pivoting, it's because they're responding to COVID. They're thinking about, well, my business isn't doing quite as well. I'm not sure if it's going to be as strong as it used to be. Maybe I need to think about some other things.
Yeah.
And I've seen both good and bad things come out of people trying to pivot. So I would say it's something that really does require,
Let's take that in two parts, okay? Let's take that in two parts. So let's start with the bad.
Right.
All right. So what happens in a pivot that makes it not go so well? Let's take that as the first question.
So I think one type of pivot was a response to COVID itself, right? So it asked the question, is there anything that I can do in my business? Let's say you're a manufacturer, and that you are able to pivot to a product that you think would be useful when people are dealing with COVID.
Okay.
So whether you're starting to sew masks or put together hand sanitizer, that is not your core business. But you decide that that's a good idea, that you can get that online, you can sell those products. But in most cases, those have not been successful unless they are really big initiatives, some government funding, then they can work out. Okay. But in reality, if you drift too far from your core purpose and your core product, you're really setting up a whole other business. And this might not be the right time for that. If what you're looking for is a quick win. How do I pivot?
I understand.
Pivot means turning a bit.
So let me understand that. So from a visionary, so there's a short-term and a long-term component to a pivot is what I really hear you saying.
Right.
And if we have retooled our businesses into a long-term for a short-term solution, then that's a danger. Is that
it's a danger.
kind of okay? That's right. So then can you describe then what a successful pivot looks like? How do you align that, what your capacity and resources are with something that would prove to be a successful pivot?
Yeah, so a great example of a pivot would be somebody whose business has really been decimated by COVID. And if you think about, all of the events that normally happen in, what we would regard as the normal world,
right.
Those have disappeared around the country, with some notable exceptions. But if you're somebody who is involved in that industry, involved in that space, then, you may be starting to think about, how can I do the same kind of thing online?
Uh,
How can I find out, for those trade shows that I used to go and service, what are they doing? Are they going to go online? If you start researching what's happening, and you've got to be one step ahead, you've really got to be thinking ahead, and you'll start to notice there's a ton of trade shows now that are happening through Zoom.
right.
That it's that kind of stuff. I've got one client who pivoted his event business to actually doing drive-in movie events, which
Oh,
are the latest
how
thing.
creative.
If you saw President Obama speaking, to all of those cars out there,
Yeah.
that's exactly what it looks like,
Oh,
right?
wow.
And they
Okay.
have that opportunity to work in that space, and they're getting some business, whereas they thought they were going to be getting none.
I
So
see.
that is intelligent pivoting around, we already do this, and how can we extend it?
I
So it's
understand.
thinking about extending your current offer so you don't damage your reputation in the marketplace by going off and doing something that is like nothing to do with who you are.
Right. Right.
So that's the best type of pivot.
I understand.
And it has quick results.
So I hear you giving advice on brand identity and
Mhm.
deciding who, not only do we want to be in the moment, but now after that moment, who we want to be going forward as a business owner, right? And our brand. And then I also hear you saying a lot around following the industry trends and seeing if your business or your model can be something that can adapt to what the current trends are to continue delivering the service. So the retooling, and sounds like the startup cost would be minimal, other than adapting to, in this example, the technology that's needed to perform that service.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so there is sometimes some development work that needs to be done.
Mhm.
One of your speakers before, who was talking about that she was working in the construction industry and doing deliveries and things like that. She did a beautiful job. I've forgotten her name now. Oh, Karen Blackwell.
Bianca.
That's what.
Yeah.
That's
Bianca.
it. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And she talked about. Oh, that's right. She talked about how they pivoted. But it
Mhm.
was so much within her current capability that it didn't take much. I mean, I'm sure it took a lot, but it didn't take, an extreme shift.
Okay. So
And
now I like the point that you're bringing up now, because what does it take? What do you need under your belt to take advantage of opportunities? So let's say we're in it for the long haul, and we've committed our resources to actually becoming and evolving into that business or that business model. What do I need? What do I need to have under my belt to make sure that that's successful?
I think the first thing I would say, and this is really directed at that small business group that I know so well,
Yeah.
is
You're talking,
really
you're
make
speaking of the business owners under 5 million.
under 5 million, and
Yes.
some of them under 1 million, right? So they really are in that startup mode.
Okay.
I think the first thing is that really, really get your financials down, right? So, when you're talking to businesses that sub a million, sometimes you're finding that they're not even using any kind of accounting system to keep their books. So there's you've got to sort of pull yourself up to that level
Yeah.
where you feel like your financials, you're running your business on the numbers.
Okay.
You understand the availability of your cash to make certain types of investments. It's particularly if you're trying to pivot.
Yes.
So that's kind of where I'm going to. But
Mhm.
really getting confident with that financial side. So I would say that's the first step. And we don't start a business. I didn't start my business because I was any kind of financial whiz kid. I
No.
started it because I was an expert in business development.
Okay.
And so I used that to build a business development agency. That was my business.
So then let's
Um,
let's let's go there. So you're saying that there were gaps, and there will be gaps. That is almost
yeah,
to be expected. We are tradesmen in our craft, and I do design, I do construction, I do paint, but we're tradesmen in our craft. So then how do you create that A team? Where are you pulling from to have that sound financial advice, to have those other, channels in your business set up and shored up? Where do we go?
yeah. Well, here, and I really, once again, I want to point to the good and the bad. So let me start
Okay,
with
so
the
first,
bad,
start with the bad. Yes.
if you're all right with
18.
that.
Oh,
So, when you're by yourself, which you often are for the first, few months of your business, your natural instinct is to hire people who understand your space.
Okay.
So your first hires, when you realize you've got to get some help because you've got more work than you can do, and this is where I would recommend that people read the E-Myth if they're in that space. They're still early stage, is read that, use it. They end up hiring people like themselves,
Mm,
people who understand their business, people that they like.
yeah.
They actually like who they are. They feel they can get on and building a great team here. And that's okay for a while. But those people come in early on and then they're expecting that they're going to become vice presidents in 2 years' time.
Okay.
And yet they are probably not the people that you need. So it's almost like you have to get to that second round where you suddenly realize you don't have a management team to take you from 1 million to 3 million, right? And at that point, that's when you start saying, how do I find those people?
Okay. So there's a gap between what happens, or how do you manage that expectation after that first 1, 2, 3 hires, where you're just naturally drawn to those people that you think reflect your vision, reflect your mission, and really want to see you succeed. So how do you keep those early adapters happy, satisfied, and maybe in it for the long haul? What's that conversation look like?
Yeah, and I think it looks like, and this is really Warren Buffett, right? Like it's straight from Warren Buffett. He was great at developing his people and then getting them out of his organization. He wanted to see them grow.
I see.
So if you're investing effort in those people and having them grow, then one of the stages of their growth is that you will eventually be hiring a management team, and that management team will be between them and you. And they were used to reporting to you directly, and that's very uncomfortable. But the big win is that for their careers, if they get somebody at a management level that can then coach them and help them, they're going to do better.
All right.
And that if you can sell them on that idea, then they realize they will grow with the company, that they might not be reporting to you in the long run. So
Yeah.
that takes a little bit of finesse.
A lot. And then but around the conversation of pivoting, we're all in this startup mode. We're all taking these new ideas, these new concepts, and we're pulling in the people to help deliver those concepts, which if it's in it for the long haul, like in your earlier example, then that will need that middle management. So these are really great concepts to have in place now as we're developing and growing and trying to respond to the market. So then with everything that happened today that we talked about, pivoting and assessing where you are, and then filling in those gaps, what's one thing, if within the sound of your voice, any other business owner heard today, what's the one thing you would tell them all to do?
I think it would be to, as quickly as possible, take some time out from working in your business and work on it.
Okay.
And I still give people that advice when they're 5 million, because sometimes they forget,
Yeah.
particularly during a pandemic when they've got so much crisis around them to hold their business together. They need to be reminded that they have to take time out, and often with advisors.
Yes.
So rather than rushing out and hiring an A team, if they can get some fractional advisors, a CFO, a CMO that can help them think through their strategy, and take that time, a couple of times a month, take Friday afternoon, make it yours.
I understand.
Make that happen. Work on your business. It's the biggest thing that you can do.
I love that. So after, again, our audience clicks subscribe, signs up for your assessment if they're a Black business owner that would like access to the resources that you're providing, how else can we get in touch with you? So if we'd like to join the membership or hear more about the Vistage membership, what's the best way to contact you?
So best way is either email or text. They literally can get hold of me. I take calls all the time. I regard an opportunity to talk to a business owner as a learning experience on my side.
Okay.
So I can't wait to talk to people to find out about where they're at. And I can promise them that if we spend 45 minutes together, they're going to walk away with something of value.
Oh, I love that. So share that number. What number should we reach you at?
So my number is 949
Yes.
400 3358.
Thank you, Anna. I'll also include it in the description box below. And I thank you
Excellent.
again for joining us on the road to recovery. I appreciate all the nuggets that you shared today. And I'm sure you'll hear a lot from our audience back on taking you up on that offer for that assessment. Thank you, Anna.
Well, thank you. And thank you for everything that you're doing, Rhonda. This is amazing.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you saying so. Thank you.